I'm Bob Murphy. Welcome to Maritime Noon. Coming up today on the phone-in, how would you rank your quality of life? Danny Graham is Chief Engagement Officer at Engage Nova Scotia, and Dr. Gaynor Watson-Creed is Chair of the Board at Engage. And I mentioned Barry. Barry, you're on the line in the Windsor area of Nova Scotia. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for giving me the space here.
And what did you want to add?
Stats Canada has already, about 15 months ago, come out with a report that's saying 52% of Nova Scotians experience loneliness, and almost 1 in 5 experience chronic loneliness. So I'm the founder of Happy Community Project and Good Neighbor Builders, and what we're doing is making it normal in communities for neighbors to know each other, care about each other, and support each other. And through that, we've heard many, many stories of tragic stories of people dying alone without their neighbors noticing, people losing their jobs and suffering financial distress alone, and things like that. So the point that I would like to make is that we've had many, many conversations, or tried to have many, many conversations with the government, both with the Department of Health and Community Culture and Heritage. And what the Department of Health tells us is that they only want to support people once they get into the into the medical system, not keeping people out of it. And from Community Culture and Heritage, what we've heard is that they have no interest in supporting people having conversations with each other in community. So I think both of these things are incredibly tragic, because there's lots and lots of research that the more socially engaged people are, the more that they feel that they have the support of their neighbors, the sense of belonging in their neighborhoods, the better mental health they have, the better physical health they have, the better spiritual health they have, the better, lower the crime rate, the greater the economic activity, the greater social and democratic engagement, and all kinds of benefits like that. I'd just like to make that comment that our government seems to be rowing in the opposite direction. That's my point. Thank you.
All right. Danny, how do you want to respond to Barry there?
Well, the point about social connections is the one that I made a little bit earlier. Barry's data about loneliness is really fundamental to whether or not we have a strong society. Mental health and loneliness have been on a steep decline in all jurisdictions. And in particular in North America, the concerns around life satisfaction for young adults who are more lonely than they've ever been before and more lonely than any other age group is a pressing issue that we all need to be talking about. Some PhD study on our data from 2019 point to two things: connection to others and connection to the natural world. If we get those right, then we will transform the way that people are successful in the economy and contributing members of our society.
Yeah, so Barry's definitely onto something, because there's a way in which not only do we know that these are the things that matter, we also know that as Maritimers, we're good at coming up with solutions around these things. I love what Barry's describing about working with community to bring people into conversation and relationship with one another. I'm reminded of a story that I've recently come across from the UK, where this tiny community just north of Glasgow made a mission to make sure that nobody in that community of 2,000 people ever had to experience life's challenges alone. And that community, as a result of that success, has grown from 2,000 to 6,000. And so there's a way in which those simple things actually matter, and they may not make it onto policy tables, but wow, do they get traction when community members take matters into their own hands around some of those things.
And Barry, I mean, you're an interesting caller, because in some ways the conversation is, what focus should the government have on addressing these issues? But you seem like you're an example of a grassroots person on the ground, founder of Happy Community Project, taking a step in your own community.
Not just in our own community. We've been working at developing these processes for community neighborhood engagement for a decade now. And we've now got it scalable, and we're actually implementing these processes all across Canada. And one of the most disappointing places in all of Canada is Nova Scotia, where our government seems to think that it's just not important. They provide very little to zero support for people actually building relationships with each other in Nova Scotia. we've had this experience where we have projects that we're trying to initiate right now in Halifax and Yarmouth and Truro and Cape Breton, as well as in other provinces. And what we overwhelmingly hear from the general public is that they want greater connectedness with their neighbors, but they are afraid to reach out to their neighbors because of a culture that we've created, and or they don't know how to. And we've created process that's proven for how that can actually really happen. Yet our government, I'm incredibly disappointed, but with the way that our government, and the example of it is just what they just did with $130 million coming out of grants when they weren't giving any money to people actually having conversations with in the first place. This is horrible.
All right. Well, Barry, I really do appreciate the call today. Thanks for making it. Chief Engagement Officer at Engage Nova Scotia, Danny Graham, and Dr. Gaynor Watson-Creed, the board chair of Engage Nova Scotia. Today.